Welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Tina Clark. I'm a shamanic Reiki Master teacher out of the Charleston area. And if you want to check out more about me, my website's tinakinneyclark.com. And today's guest is Amy Vincze out in California, and she is an emotional freedom technique tapping coach. And I'm also trained in EFT, so I love it. And I'd like to give her a warm welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tina.
So, Amy, tell us a little bit more about your background, because I know you've been doing the emotional freedom technique, or EFT, for quite a while now.
Yeah, I have been a coach for, I think it's 17 years now. I'm not going to do the math, but before that, I was also just a seeker. Probably like a lot of people out there, just wanting to understand my own behavior better, wanting to understand the behavior of other people better. And so I went about getting that information in a lot of different ways. I'm like a massage therapist, a cold and hydrotherapist, and Reiki Master myself. But the thing that kind of triggered my interest in tapping was that I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 31, with no history of breast cancer in my family. That just didn't make sense to me. So I was really curious, about, I could be standing next to somebody that is, for the most part, biologically the same as me, same age, same everything. And why is it that I would get breast cancer and this other person wouldn't? So one of the ways that I thought about finding the answers to that was that I went and started going to Tony Robbins events, which I love Tony. He's such a great guy. But I met a friend there who introduced me to tapping. And while it didn't give me the answers for the breast cancer question, it did give me a really great tool to apply to the reasons behind the breast cancer issue. And the minute I had a session, I recognized this as a really powerful tool and sought out my own coach right away and got certified very soon after that. So I've been certified for a long time. It was about 7 years ago now that I kind of went through a crisis point in my life where, everything around me felt like it was crumbling. With my health, I was in constant pain. With my daughter, I had mom guilt constantly, just feeling like I wasn't doing a great job at being a parent. Professionally, I was totally failing. There was a lot of different areas. And I turned to tapping again, where before I had kind of some success with it, some not success with it. Sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. But this time I utilized it and I went all the way back to what I was assuming was the root cause of some of the problems I was experiencing. I went straight for like the really deep foundational fears. And that's when I discovered the true potential of this tool, because everything in my life changed after that. When I went after,
so before you go any further, so we don't lose people yet, can you explain what the emotional freedom technique is in case someone's not familiar with it?
Absolutely. EFT tapping is very similar to acupuncture in that it utilizes the 14 energy meridians found in Chinese medicine. But instead of the needles, we use the percussion of tapping on our acupressure points, and that is what facilitates the healing. But the thing that makes it so powerful is that it also couples that with cognitive therapy aspects, because you're actively talking about what it is you want to release while you're doing the tapping. And it incorporates somatic therapies, because you cannot help by just the simple act of tapping on your body, you're bringing your energy back from the past. You're bringing your energy back from worrying about the future and all those fears, and you're centering it and grounding it in the present moment. Now, what's happening on a scientific level is that the amygdala, the stress center in our brain, it gets activated when we go throughout our day by things that are happening, whether it's pain or like a fear or something like that. 99% of the time, we don't even recognize that we have been triggered somehow. But then all of a sudden, we just feel like we're anxious and we don't know why. What's happened is the amygdala has been triggered, that stress center in our brain, and all it's trying to do is protect us. But what it does is it releases this flood of cortisol into our body, and we feel really anxious. So what tapping is doing, though, it is de-escalating that triggering response in our amygdala. It's telling it to de-escalate, de-escalate, de-escalate. And while it's removing cortisol from our body, about 43% faster than if you had done nothing else, it's lowering your heart rate, it's lowering your blood pressure, and it is telling your body and reprogramming your body to feel safe and calm about whatever it is you were trying to release while you're doing the tapping. So it is really a quite powerful tool because it incorporates all three of those things. It's a triple threat.
Yeah, that I love your explanation on how it works, because I have done it and I've done it with my clients, and it really works fast.
It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, when I first learned it, I was offering kind of mini sessions with people just to get their feedback, and it was awesome. Like, you rank how you're feeling before and after the tapping session. So the way I do it, I always ask that person, when you think about this, whatever you're upset about, where from 0 to 10 do you feel? And if they're above like 5 and above, they're feeling emotionally intense about it. And so we decide to tap through that with the statement, I'm feeling this way, but I'm feeling this way and I unconditionally love myself.
Yeah.
So then we're tapping through all those different points. And then when we do, we go through it once, I check in with them again. Okay, so take a deep breath. And how do you feel now from 0 to 10? Well, usually they feel calmer. Maybe we didn't get to 4 below yet. We might have to do another round.
Right.
But it doesn't really take a long time.
It depends on what it is you're tapping on, but most people will consistently go down in their numbers and release fairly easily. Occasionally, you will run into somebody that has what's called a reversal, where their body is telling them that it's not safe to release whatever it is that they're focusing on. Or it's not safe, it's not possible, or there's a part of them that doesn't want to release it. So they might get to a certain point and then just kind of stay at that number, and that's when you know you've got a reversal. So then we just acknowledge that there's that part of you that doesn't want to let it go, or doesn't feel like it's possible to let it go, or doesn't feel like it's safe to let it go. And then usually that is enough to allow your body to start releasing again. Just acknowledging that there's these parts of you and honoring it is enough for your body to release it, which I think is just so profound, because normally we avoid these thoughts and feelings thinking that they're wrong. But when you lean into it and you kind of allow yourself to experience it, that's when it can dissipate really fast.
Yeah, so let's go back to your story now. And you said everything was kind of falling apart.
Oh, yeah.
And you were tapping through it, and then you found out you could get to the root of it. So how were you getting to the root of it?
So first of all, I was focusing in, because we know that I have chronic UTIs from the time I was 2 years old. my entire life, I've probably had 1,000 or more UTIs. And what we know is that the meridian the Chinese meridian that includes the bladder and the kidneys is all about fear. So there was a part of me that recognized that whatever I was feeling was based on massive fear. And so I just went for the big fears. I instinctively, I don't know, I just went for the big ones. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of not belonging, fear of not being worthy or deserving, fear of there being something wrong with me. Somehow all of these fears felt like they were absolutely massive. And in my tapping, I was able to kind of see the thread that these fears had influenced literally every decision in my life. How many decisions had I made based on the fact that I was feeling unworthy or deserving of some goodness in my life, or this fear that I eventually was going to be abandoned or rejected by the people that I love most. I mean, that kept me from being in a really deep relationship, and it kept me from doing well in my professional career. I could see so clearly how I had been looking through the lens of those fears my entire life. So when I started using tapping on those fears specifically and was letting them go, my world opened up in ways I couldn't have imagined. By letting go of some of these fears, I suddenly had the courage to do things I never thought possible for myself, like starting my own business or working with people and charging money for it. I mean, there was just a crazy amount in my mind, a crazy amount of progress that was made in such a short period of time. I could not point the finger at anything else other than tapping on these root fears. And while I was tapping on the fears, I was kind of acknowledging, like, of course I have these fears based on this, and this that happened in my childhood. It makes perfect sense. I just kept saying that to myself. And then when I had done that enough, when I had given those fears their day in court, they were just able to leave. It was really remarkable.
So how did you identify those fears? Did you just list them out? Hey, I'm afraid of this, so I think I need to tap through this fear.
Well, I started with a list of top 10 things, and those didn't necessarily occur to me immediately. Like fear of failure was definitely one of them, but then that didn't seem like it was enough. That seemed like there was something underneath that. And then it occurred to me while I was doing my tapping, which will often happen in a tapping round, more thoughts and more feelings will become available to you as you're going through this process. But it occurred to me that the fear of failure was also a symptom of the fear of being unworthy or deserving. Because if I did fail, what did it mean? It meant that somebody might take their love away from me, or they might judge or criticize me. And if that's the case, then my worst fear, which is that I'm not worthy or deserving, would come true. It would affirm that fear in my mind. So I don't know. I just kind of instinctively went deeper and deeper and deeper and discovered what I now call foundational fears, because everything else seems to be a symptom of that and can be ciphered down, like procrastination even can be ciphered down into one of these foundational fears. So can addiction, or I don't know, you name it. Sometimes even physical pain. Like those can all be ciphered down into something, one of those foundational fears typically.
So how many foundational fears are there?
Oh, good question.
I'm curious to know what they are.
All right, let me count them out on my fingers. Okay, fear of not belonging, fear of not being worthy or deserving, fear of abandonment, rejection, fear of our body. That's a big one, especially if someone has had a physical illness, like a major physical illness. There's fear of financial insecurity, because that we're so dependent on money for our just being able to feed ourselves and survive. Let's see. Fear of something being wrong with us. So yeah, I'm counting 7. Did I miss one? It's possible. 7 or 8.
I've got 7.
Yeah.
And an interesting fear of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Because no, I don't, that's really unconscious. Because I don't think people walk around thinking, I'm afraid of this body. But yeah, the body is so
But if anybody complex,
complex.
yes. Yeah, if anybody has had like any kind of chronic pain, even if it isn't something massive like cancer, they could have chronic pain, they could have an injury that's not healing, something along those lines, something that they can't put their finger on or they can't manage to heal, then there could be an aspect of that. And if somebody can say, I don't trust my body in any way, shape, or form, then there's an element of that. They might not be at a 10 on the intensity scale, like somebody that has had like cancer or something along those lines, but there could be an element of that in there.
Yeah. Or even if you have a disability or something,
Yes.
you were born with a disability or you got a disability somehow and
Yep.
your body's not working like other people's bodies are.
Yes. Yes. Very true. And to be honest, Tina, like if that's the case, most people will bring their energy up into their head as far away from their body as they can, and which causes more anxiety, right? Because then their
Mhm.
energy is swirling up in their head, just spinning thoughts constantly. And it really is the act of kind of bringing your energy back down into your body, getting grounded in your body again, that allows us to be our most efficient and in our most effective state. So it behooves us to be able to trust this space of our body and trust that even if it is presenting some kind of ailment or pain, that it is in our best and highest good. It's telling us to pay attention to something, and it is telling us that we are meant to go through this somehow, that there's some benefit from this. So getting rid of that distrust is a really powerful thing for some people.
So with the clients you've been working with, what are the most common fears that people are struggling with right now out of the 7 that you mentioned?
I think the ones that I see most commonly are the fear of not being worthy or deserving, and then the fear of not belonging. I think we all have an innate need to be connected with other people. And when we feel like we are separate, then it's really painful it's a very basic level. I mean, I think that there's an ancestral part of us that needs to be part of a tribe, but I also think that there's a spiritual part of us that is missing that connectedness that we might feel on the other side. And so that is a really powerful one for some people, including me.
Yeah, for me too,
Yeah,
for sure. And not belonging, that's a tough one,
it is.
especially when you chose to do something very different that's non-conventional, like being a tapping coach or being a Reiki master or
Yes,
that kind of thing. But I've always been really good at finding my tribe. I always tell everybody, find your tribe, find
yes,
your people. So you have
yes,
someone to talk to about what you're really interested in.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so many people are isolated or afraid to talk about these things. And
Mm-hmm.
and well, there are people out there, but you have to get out there.
Yeah, I agree. And I always remember too and I don't remember the exact quote, but it's from Brene Brown. And basically what she said was, if you are constantly trying to belong, in general, what you are doing is sacrificing parts of yourself in order to be part of the greater good. But it's when you honor every part of yourself that you belong to yourself first and foremost. And then instead of fitting in, you actually belong. So I didn't get that right. Trying to belong ends up looking more like fitting in, and fitting in means conforming.
Right.
Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Mhm.
And then, but if you try to honor all of your unique desires for yourself, then you belong to yourself first and foremost. And that's the most important thing.
And there has always been a part of me since I was little that didn't want to conform.
A little rebel.
Oh, yeah. Even
Yeah.
if it was like fashion, everybody was
Yeah.
into this type of sneaker. And I would be like, who cares? I don't need those sneakers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just like those little things when you're growing up, people are interested in, or, especially when you're young, we tend to conform more than any other part of our life.
Yes, I agree.
But
Yeah.
then women hit their 40s.
Well,
No to all of that.
yeah, screw that. That
Right.
just a lot of pain. I'm going to go in a different direction now.
So I know that I don't know if you have tapping scenarios for certain types of, issues. Like I have one for anxiety and one for depression. Do you have a slightly different scenario for those type of challenges?
Depression is one that I think that it's a complex issue. So I don't know that there's one way to approach that. Anxiety, it's kind of the same thing as anxiety, but I would tell everybody, start with your top 10 fears, whatever they are. Write them down and start ticking them off one by one. That is going to get you the fastest progress rather than focusing on anything else. And this was the biggest mistake I made when I started tapping. I was focusing on my symptoms. I was focusing on procrastination. And while tapping or anxiety, and while tapping was great because it would put a Band-Aid over those things, it wasn't healing the wound at the root cause. And sometimes you need a Band-Aid, right? Sometimes you need something to just get you through the day. You don't always have the time to address a foundational fear. And sometimes you just don't want to go there anyway. But approaching your top 10 fears, very first thing, is the best way to go. That's what anxiety is just fear, an unrecognizable fear in your body that biologically, or I should say, I guess not biologically, but physically you are responding to, your body is responding to. Depression starts with fears, and then it turns into disempowering beliefs. And then it turns into people kind of vowing to get rid of certain parts of themselves that they think are wrong or dangerous in some way. And then they end up being a really fragmented version of themselves. That's what depression is. And it's when they can start incorporating back those things back in that they feel whole again, and the depression can stay at bay. So fears are the best way to go to address the root cause, and then focus on other things for depression in particular.
Yeah, and if you're curious about tapping, I'm sure there's information on your website, but you could probably even just search emotional freedom technique and find the tapping scenario, or in videos. People love to watch videos on YouTube on how to do things.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to ask them to go to the app too, because I have the Soar with Tapping app, and there's over 170 different tapping scripts. But there's also instructional videos on there that will tell people how to address some of the bigger issues that they might be experiencing.
Okay.
So there's a general anxiety relief.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one specifically for depression because it's pretty complex, but yeah, there's definitely things that they can go to that would make sense.
And it's called Soar with Tapping.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Soar with Tapping app. So check it out and you can start tapping on your top 10 fears. I'm kind of nerdy that way because when I find a new way to do shadow work, I'm always like, well, let's get to it, and I'm not quite sure if other people are as enthusiastic as I am, but I always want to work on my stuff, and I one of the things I love about tapping is you can do it anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, me too.
So, for example, one night, I don't know why I was awake, but sometimes I wake up and I was just laying there thinking about all these scenarios. And I said, okay, well, I need to go back to sleep. So I'm going to tap through this. So I literally laid in bed and tapped through everything that I was worried about or coming up with and making sure I was calm at the end. And then I was like, okay, next thing, what else? And then I did all this tapping in bed, never woke up my husband, by the way, had no idea.
Yeah.
And then I fell back asleep.
Oh, that's wonderful. Tapping is one of the best tools for getting to sleep fast, isn't it? Or going back to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise you're laying there and you're just, how the mind works. You're just cycling through stuff
spinning and nowhere for it to land.
Right. So tapping is one of the ways that clears my mind and, gets me calmer really fast.
Yeah, me too.
And I believe calm is a superpower.
I think so too. And I'm totally in the same thought process as you about leaning into shadow work. Now that I've been tapping for so long, when I find something that I need to lean into, I kind of get a little bit excited because I know on the other side, it's going to be 10 times better. And I'm not afraid of my challenging emotions anymore. I don't even think that there are such thing as negative emotions. Some are just harder to experience than others. So now that I'm not afraid of them, I'm ready to move through them once I discover that they're even there.
Oh, me same. Me same. I mean, I've been doing shadow work for so long, and sometimes I dive into it deeply, and I'm going, oh my God, there's so much in here.
Yeah.
Or I joined a group where we were doing shadow work for months. And I was like, I'm going to take a break, everybody. I need a break from the shadow work. But
but we heal in layers, right? Like we can, for me, the fear of being unworthy or undeserving is always going to be there. But I have probably gotten rid of 60% of it. And it's like whenever I get rid of a layer, then I can expand a little bit more. And then I bump up against that same fear again, and then I have to deal with it again. And then I can expand a little bit more. And so I just know that I'm going to keep healing and evolving as I go through this work. And I get a little bit excited about what's possible for myself when I think of leaning into more shadow stuff sometimes.
And do you want to know what's holding you back, or do you want to keep it in the shadow, have it affect you, and you can't move beyond that point? So to me, it's a clear choice.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that. So I wonder if you could just guide us through a short tapping session for the listeners that are watching the video.
Oh, I would love to.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Show us how you do it.
I'm going to go through the tapping points really quick. So, because this is one area that I think people need to be a little bit of a perfectionist. If you're tapping in the wrong spot, then it's not nearly as effective. So the first spot is just down from our pinky fingers, called a karate chop point. I like to tap those two spots together.
Oh, good. I don't do that, so that's nice to know.
And then here's where we say usually 2 to 3 even though statements, where we say something like, even though I'm feeling a lot of anxiety in my body, I love and accept myself anyway. And then we move to what's called repeater phrases. And the first spot you're going to tap on is right at the beginning of your eyebrows.
So you do both sides.
I tap on both sides of my body. I figure
Okay.
I'm here. I might as well do as much as I can.
Cover it all.
The second one is out on your temple on the side of your eye. And then underneath your eye, right on top of your cheekbones. And then under your nose, under your mouth. And then your collarbone point, if you find the beginning of your collarbone, you're going to go down about 1 inch. There's a little valley in between your collarbone and your ribs on either side of your sternum. That's the spot that you want to tap in. And then under your arms. For women, it's right where their bra strap is, 4 inches down from your arm.
You do both at the same time?
Yep. And then on your ribs, just below your bras, usually. And then your wrists, you've got 3 different points. There's one on the outside, middle, and outside of your wrist. So I tend to tap my wrists together and turn them a little bit so I can hit each spot. I also have a coach that, my microphone's in the way, that taps like this with her fingers. So whatever's most.
Oh, okay.
And then the last one is up on top of your head. Now that hits all 14 energy meridians. Other tapping coaches don't use all of them, or they might just tap on one side of their body or the other. None of it is wrong, and all of it is effective. I just like to do it this way. This is the way I learned. So would you like to do one for like general anxiety?
Sure, yeah. Let's do that.
Most of your listeners know what that is, at least. Even though I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety in my body, and I have no idea what it's about. You want to repeat after me?
Okay, even though I'm feeling a lot of anxiety in my body and I don't know what it's about.
I honor all my thoughts and feelings about it anyway.
I honor all my thoughts and feelings about it anyway.
Even though I'm feeling extremely anxious for whatever reason.
Even though I'm feeling extremely anxious for whatever reason.
Or for a million reasons.
Or for a million reasons.
I love and honor all parts of who I am completely.
I love and honor all parts of myself completely.
Even though I'm feeling so anxious right now.
Even though I'm feeling so anxious right now.
And maybe even experiencing some physical symptoms as a result.
And maybe even experiencing some physical symptoms as a result.
I love myself anyway.
I love myself anyway.
And I honor my courage in tackling this issue.
And I honor my courage in tackling this issue.
Okay, now we're going to go up to the eyebrow point. All this anxiety in my body.
All this anxiety in my body.
Moving to the temple. I don't know why I'm feeling so anxious.
I don't know why I'm feeling so anxious.
I just know that I don't feel comfortable for whatever reason.
I just know I don't feel comfortable for whatever reason.
And there's a part of me that doesn't feel safe.
And there's a part of me that doesn't feel safe.
I don't feel safe right now.
I don't feel safe right now.
And I don't exactly know why.
And I don't know exactly why.
But I want to honor all my thoughts and feelings about it anyway.
But I want to honor all my thoughts and feelings about it anyway.
Maybe I was triggered somehow.
Maybe I was triggered somehow.
Maybe there's a part of me that feels afraid because of something that happened in my past.
Maybe there's a part of me that's afraid because of something that happened in my past.
And I wonder if the same threat still exists today.
And I wonder if the same threat exists today.
I wonder if my body is just trying to protect me from something that happened in my past.
I wonder if my body is trying to protect me from something that happened in the past.
And maybe it's not a real threat at this moment.
And maybe it's not a real threat at this moment.
Maybe it's okay to de-escalate.
Maybe it's okay to de-escalate.
Maybe it's okay to tell my body to relax.
Maybe it's okay to tell my body to relax.
It all feels so scary, though.
It all feels so scary, though.
And any fear that is present is there for a reason.
Any fear that is present is there for a reason.
And it's trying to keep me safe.
And it's trying to keep me safe.
And I deeply honor all my thoughts and feelings about this.
And I deeply honor all my thoughts and feelings about this.
And I want to feel safe enough to bring my energy back down into my body.
And I want to feel safe enough to bring my energy back into my body.
So that I can be the most effective and most efficient version of myself.
So I can become the most effective version of myself.
Okay, take a nice deep breath. I could go on and on. I just did a super short one. I hope that was okay.
Yeah, so as you're tapping, you're coming up with statements.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And they're affirming and validating. And then as you're tapping, the combo of saying that and tapping keeps you in the present, which is our natural state. Our relaxed state is in the present.
That's right. That's right. So you're putting yourself in the best possible position to feel really calm about an anxious situation.
So the way I learned it is an even though statement. So, I'd be like, even though I'm feeling really anxious right now, I deeply and unconditionally love myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would repeat that same statement at all the different tapping points.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's how I learned it.
A little bit different then. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I do all of the tapping points except I don't do the ribs. And then we do the sides of the fingers, not the wrists.
Yeah.
So a little bit different.
A little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I like acknowledging because there's a lot of different nuances to what's going on, especially with something like anxiety. So I love being able to honor and acknowledge all of them, like the physical changes that happen in your body and the feeling that you're not safe or that there's somehow some danger or threat out there. I think those are all really valid things to talk about with clients or with yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'm definitely going to try it your way. And then one of the things that I love about tapping is that you talk about loving yourself. And I don't think people say that often enough out loud.
Yeah.
And it can be really powerful to guide someone through a tapping scenario where they say that and they hardly ever say it.
Yeah. What's important with tapping too is for all of your words to feel accurate. So for somebody in the beginning, it might be more accurate to say, I want to love and accept myself, as opposed to I do love and accept myself. Because for me, at first, that felt like a total lie. I don't love and accept myself. So it was a real, like I was at odds with what was being said. So it's important that it be as accurate as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a truth.
Yeah.
Love is the truth. And
Yes,
so
absolutely.
the more you repeat it, the more comfortable you become with it. And you're like, yes, I love myself unconditionally. And you are not holding back in saying that anymore, which is a beautiful thing.
And one point I want to make for your listeners too, is if they're tapping on their own and they take their initial rating, their 0 to 10 rating that you were talking about, and say they're at an 8 or a 9 on whatever topic it is, it's important to honor and acknowledge all of the hard things about what you're feeling at first. And it feels really counterintuitive to honor and acknowledge that you feel unsafe or that there feels like there's a threat, and to keep yourself in that emotional state. But that is what allows you to let it go, because those feelings are still there. You're not just slapping on happy thoughts on top of it. You're actually getting rid of it. So when you get your number after a couple of tapping rounds down to like a 3 or a 4, that's when you can really start infusing positive statements and have them feel true. And then that'll collapse your number down to 0 faster than anything. So from
Wow.
like 3 or 4 to 10, you should be focusing on the challenging part of whatever you're feeling. And then you can start infusing more positive stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, Amy, can you share your website and how people can contact you? And do you have any classes or projects coming up you'd like to talk about?
Anybody can reach me at amy@soarwithtapping.com if they want to email me. They can always go to my website, soarwithtapping.com. I'm on all social media, and I do offer people like just a very short little daily tapping round to give them a little gift to start their day. And if they want to download the app, they can go to my website first, soarwithtapping.com/podcast-special. And there they will find a code that they can input into the app to redeem a 50% off their first annual subscription. Other than that, I don't have any classes going on. I'm mostly focused on generating new content for the app.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for sharing your wisdom and experience on the show.
I absolutely love this conversation, Tina. Thank you so much for having me.